Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our STEM Connect webinar series. We have Christine Lee here joining us. Christine, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Awesome. Good to have you. I'm Jim Lee, and I'm here with STEM Connect representing our leadership development series. And Christine, we talked a few weeks ago when we were at the conference a little bit more about your leadership and learning how to maximize your next level career. But more than just kind of recapping what we went through, I'd love for you to kind of extend the conversation a little bit more, maybe going a little bit deeper. Maybe there's some insights from some of the participants that were there on what maybe they pulled away from it that you didn't, maybe it was surprising for you to see what they took away. But yeah, love to hear what were some of your experiences like at the conference.
Yeah, well, the conference I just absolutely loved. It was my first STEM Connect conference with SACE. And, I found that I really love hanging out with engineers. They're kind of like my type of people. They're brilliant, they're very genuine. My dad was an engineer, and my mom was a creative person. But yeah, I think the challenge and the fun challenge and the fun journey of tapping into our leadership as engineers and as STEM professionals, and really in any industry, but the conference itself, there were a lot of STEM professionals. So it's really fun because I think the journey felt really personal for me. I'm like, oh, you know, growing up in my family, kind of engineering-esque family, I actually didn't think that I could lead. I didn't think that that was like in my toolkit, in my realm of possibility. And not until recently, I think I've been stepping up more into leadership, and specifically in my coaching experience with you, Jim, some years ago. I think it's my leadership journey has really taken off. And I'm excited that I get to turn around and now be a part of some other people's story and their leadership journey trajectory, right? As a
Uh-huh.
way of paying it forward. And so I love to partner with talented professionals. They may or may not see themselves as effective leaders, but to come alongside and empower their leadership journey by leaning into your strengths and who they are at their core, without pressure of imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah. What do you think led you to pick this topic for the conference? Like anything stood out, or maybe just digging a little bit deeper on some of those experiences you've had?
Yeah, well, I think maximizing our next level leadership is just salient. It's an important topic for all of us. But it kind of gave me a chance to hone in even on the five voices framework, which is the coaching framework that I do my work
Mhm.
from. And one of the main tenets of what we espouse is that, knowing ourselves is absolutely foundational to leading well, because then, right, we can lead into our strengths and lean into our strengths, instead of living and working kind of reactively, right? Because we're so much more potent when we're leading out of our strengths. Because oftentimes, we're just busy, right, with life, with work. So we might be living life on survival mode without like a clear vision of, like, number one, who we are, number two, where we're going.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think instead of living circumstantially, being pushed and pulled in different directions, that's kind of the status quo. But knowing ourselves means that we have the agency to initiate based on our strengths. And so we can lead with that instead of reacting. And why wouldn't we take the time to do that? Sometimes it's like a luxury, like, oh, to think about, stop and pause, like, what is my gifting, what is my area of strength? But actually, it's really essential if we want to lead ourselves effectively out of our strength. And then we could turn around and have a sense of other strengths, right? The voices around us, and then lead them from their points of strength too. So I think the challenge is real, but the journey of growth is actually super rewarding. So I love being part of that, in other people's lives as well.
Okay. So it sounds like you're inviting us to reconsider maybe how we approach life. You say we must know ourselves to lead ourselves, but before we get into that, what are some maybe like tangible symptoms that maybe we could do a self audit before we go in
Yeah.
to really have some of that self awareness to realize like, wow, my reality, if it looks like this, it could be because I'm kind of running a little bit too fast forward. And what seems like a luxury, what you're saying is it's not a luxury. It's imperative we take the time to self-diagnose. So, what would some of our realities look like that maybe we could avoid if we were to be a little bit more intentional how we lead ourselves?
Right. So I think that we could take into account things like what our job functions require of us. We could take into account our family upbringing in terms of what was emphasized. And so you may be operating out of strengths that actually you may be strong at some of these areas of work or some of these ways of communicating because it was really emphasized in these different spheres of life, but it may actually be kind of draining for you. But
Yeah.
the beauty of recognizing our natural strength is like you may actually have a leadership voice that's a little bit untapped. You're not utilizing to your potential. And
Uh-huh.
now you are, kind of spinning your wheels, working on reacting and giving other people what they're requiring of you. But taking that moment to really consider and have a good sense, knowing ourselves. The five voices framework, I'll share a screen real quick if that's okay.
Sure.
This is the framework that I love to utilize. And it's a great synopsis, these five voices, of what your motivations and your strengths are. Those two tend to align. And so if I know that out of these five, my natural tendency is a guardian voice versus a creative voice, or whatever, any of the five, it's going to show up really differently in how we work and how we communicate and how we lead people. So if we have, let's say, you may be an engineer and you're doing a lot of guardian, really detail oriented tasks, and you thrive at that, you can lean into that.
Mhm.
Whereas you may be like a connector or creative voice where you're actually not a detail oriented person, but you've learned to care about the details and to be quite good at it. But actually, your strength may not lie in detail work. You may be more of a big picture person or a pioneer. You love to win, nurture. You just are great at caring for people and making that genuine connection. So you can lead out of any of these strengths. How you communicate is going to change. How you motivate people is also going to change. And I think the five voices, the power of the five voices, it brings people to people alignment. So, there's lots of assessments out there, but if I know what my strength is, then are we all going to go and nurturers go work over there, creatives go over here? Working in silos and just knowing our strengths is at the end of the day not super impactful to build a good team. So if we all have different strengths, but we could align our voices so that our voices, so like my strength can also connect with what may be not as strong in you, but you also have a creative voice. If I have a creative voice, so we can kind of calibrate how we communicate and lead other people depending on their voice order, right? So if I know myself, and that I know have a sense of what other voices are in the room. Now we don't have to work in silos. We don't have to just everybody do their own work the best they can. I can take my best work and I can bring strengths to the table. You have different strengths and you bring that to the table, but we can communicate in a way where our voices are aligned. And that's the power of the voice order, which, you know, that's kind of detailed, but we can get into that if you like.
Well,
um,
I think we kind of let the can out, the cat out of the bag, I want to
mhm.
say. And so I love the voices. Obviously, I'm well versed in it. Tom
Yeah,
is also well versed in it. And
yeah,
I know I had a little conversation with Christine as well. Hi, Christine, to talk about the voices. But for a lot of those that don't know it,
yeah,
just to kind of frame what Christine is sharing is that how we show up, a lot of our strengths and weaknesses, and not having awareness of maybe using this as a guide on where our strengths are can cause us to act accidentally, right? And so, Christine, you kind of glossed over some of these, but before we kind of go into maybe talking about having a little bit more awareness and how we can align our energies better in that way with productivity, let's kind of go a little bit to help maybe some of those that weren't in the session. I got to help them be a little bit familiar with it, but maybe not necessarily have to be a pro at it. And because I know this workshop in itself could easily take a good hour, hour and a half.
yeah.
Right. And so, with that, if we had to say like a nurturer voice, like how do I know nurturer is my core strength? And I know the premise is that we can do all five. And when you talked about voice order earlier, it's there's a level to these five that are in a certain order that we may have strengths and weaknesses to. But for us to help maybe be aware of it, maybe least starting out with the nurture voice, how can I be aware if this is what would you say my strength or a foundational voice for me?
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, it's worth digging a little bit into these voices for those of you who aren't familiar. Um, and the nurture voice is really great at caring for people. They really value people and they're great listeners, they tend to be. And they're kind of the relational oil of organizations. And so when you walk into a room and you're able to connect with the nurturer, they make you feel like you belong, you matter. And in terms of building long-term, strong work teams, a nurture voice is kind of essential. It's interesting that they take up 43% of the population. I always say that, nurturers, it takes 43% of us to be nurturers to make the world go around. They're that essential. They're also very present oriented. And so they're very good, like listeners, not trying to solve your problem, but they will just listen and care for you, right? And so nurturers are amazing. My husband's a nurturer. Your wife is a nurturer, right, Jim?
Yep.
So I think they're amazing people who kind of bring that care and life to everyone around them.
Okay. Great. Let's go to the creative voice. Tell me a little bit more about this one. Like, how can I know if this is my foundational or my top strength, maybe out of the five?
Right. So creatives are just, they love ideas. I have to chuckle whenever I read this because when I found that I was a creative voice, I found it to be super liberating. So this is really fun. We love future ideas. We love innovating. And I think that sometimes they have a hard time, actually, like this is definitely my story. They have a hard time communicating sometimes. So a lot of their good ideas kind of gets dismissed. So for a long time, I think I was like, why I don't really have good ideas. Because when I offer ideas, people would kind of look at me or dismiss me. And so it's interesting that creatives they have a wealth of wonderful ideas. Some of them are excellent. Some of them, the timing could be off, like it's not going to happen tomorrow, but they are great sensors of future opportunities and future threats, things like that. So
Okay.
sometimes they're off, but sometimes they're brilliant. But the power of the creative voice for me, my journey was I had to really because I realized through the training that I went through with you that my if I'm not organized in how I communicate, that my idea will get lost because I have
Mm,
10 ideas in my head and the first thing that comes out of my mouth is not a great summary of those 10 ideas. And because I'm always thinking about the future, for all the present oriented voices, they've lost me. They don't understand, they can't track. So
mm.
I think elevating actually my fifth voice is my guardian, it's my lowest, but getting some organization in how I communicate, I started jotting down a few thoughts of, like if I have 10 thoughts, I'll jot down like a couple of words that is a good summary. And then I would do that before speaking up in meetings. And I found that people responded so much better to my ideas. They actually, a lot of times love my ideas, but they had to understand me first, right? So the creatives are sometimes they feel misunderstood or not understood, but they do have great capacity to kind of envision the future and innovate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one, Guardian. How do I know if that's my foundational voice?
Yeah, guardians are amazing, detail-oriented people, and they deliver projects on time, on budget, and they kind of take personal their ability to do that. So they take a lot of like personal responsibility in delivering as scheduled. And so they could be very reliable, due diligence, of course, excellent manager of resources, my husband is a guardian second voice. He goes around turning the lights off like everywhere because I tend to leave it all on. So, but they're really excellent managers of resources as well. They're very present oriented. So sometimes, you may kind of, miss the forest for the trees, right? You're focusing on the details. So a challenge for Guardian maybe come out of that detail orientation from time to time, take a gulp of air and kind of look around and then also tap into if you have, a second, third, fourth voice that's more future oriented, it could really be empowering for the Guardian to kind of not only assess where we've been and where we are, but also consider where we're going.
Okay. Moving on, connector.
Connector.
I think it's the best one, but I'll
I
give you
know.
guys.
Why don't you tell us about it, Jim? Because you're a connector, aren't you?
Well, myself and Tom, we both are, but one of the things that I found that was really liberating for me was like my constant need to want to help other people, more so connect their ideas with their future was a big part of me. And I think realizing in order for me to do that, I enjoyed social settings, right? And I think it was really hard growing up in a STEM environment, going to a university with a STEM degree, because that's not the culture around me. In fact, it was very the opposite. And so, when you talked about earlier about showing up a little bit more intentionally, how do we use our strengths in a way to help liberate us? I wasn't using it because I thought that was the bad thing to do, right? Like everybody around my classes are antisocial. And I thought they looked at me weird for being social, but that's what a connector does is we're social. Like I would talk to people. I want to hear what their thoughts and ideas are. And I want to know like how can I help them to get into that space. But when it was misunderstood, and as well as like I didn't really practice my strengths in a way, like I didn't understand how to use it. I could also come off very domineering where I'm telling people what to do versus like suggesting what I think would be best for them in their outcome versus what I think is for me and myself in a way. So that's the connector voice of it's just being social and engaging with other people and having this desire to help other people with their goals and the ability to socialize that ability in a way.
Absolutely. And
Anything I
I
missed?
was that?
I said anything I missed, Christine?
Oh, yeah, no. So I have a perspective on connectors. It's my second voice, but I really appreciate the connectors in my life. You, as well as my one of my sons, is a connector. And I have friends also who operate out of this voice. They are amazing at resourcing people, right? Like you have a need, here's a resource. Amazing just ability to connect with people. Like I can't say for no reason, but my son used to do this. He just like connects with people. Like, I'm like, how do you do that? Just walks up, makes that connection. And I've always really admired that ability in people. I think for me, finding out that I was a connector's second voice was really fascinating because I was like, I'm not that outgoing. Like, I just never saw myself in that light. But I found that, again, this gets into the voice order. But as a creative connector, I love connecting with people for a creative purpose. So that's been a really fun journey for me at the conference, even now doing webinars like this. Like normally I would, 10 years ago, I would have never thought I would do something like this, but I love connecting with people to further a vision, right? A purpose. So that's really fun. For first voice, second voice, even third voice connectors, it could really come out if you tap into it,
Cool.
uh, which is the fun journey of the voice order. And I guess, should I finish off the pioneer here?
Yeah, let's go with Pioneer. Let's
Let's
roll
do
it
it.
out.
So
Uh-huh.
pioneers are amazing. I was actually having a conversation, right, Dallas, the other day about how you are probably a pioneer. Um, Pioneers are just strategic thinkers. They're very results oriented. They love to problem solve and they love to win. So they are excellent at lining up the people and the tasks that are needed to get that vision completed and done and do it successfully. So they do make naturally good leaders. They do have blind spots as well. What's interesting about pioneers is that they when you talk about the five voices and the ordering that you have for your five voices, the bottom voice, we call it the nemesis voice. It just doesn't mean you hate them. It just means it's kind of low in you. So pioneers sometimes, or I guess all the time, their nurture voice is low. It's their fifth voice. So
Mhm.
sometimes they can get that project done and be successful, but it may be hard for you to build a long-term sustainable team of people who actually like want to be part of that team. And that's where the nurture voice comes in. Pioneers who team up effectively with nurturers, it really empowers their leadership and allows them to build a long-term team. So yeah, those are just some of the insights. When you talk about the five voices, there is an ordering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so when I talked about the alignment earlier, the beautiful thing is I am a creative connector, nurture, pioneer, guardian in that order. So when I'm connecting with someone who has a different voice than me, what I love about the alignment power that this gives you is I can elevate a third, fourth, or fifth voice. It takes a little effort, but I could elevate that to connect with someone who has a different strength, uh,
Mm.
a voice order than I do. It just takes a little bit of intentionality and a little bit of self knowledge and also others' knowledge, which is kind of what this five voices training enables us to do.
So we went a little deep in this, and I threw in the chat for the audience, which ones do you think you're most aligned with? Don't worry if you can't get all five, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to have a
Yeah.
poll. Yash, Christine, Lindley, Tom. Well, I know what yours is, but for those of you in the room, love to hear if you want to throw in the chat box, what you think yours is, or if you have questions about it, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to clarify. But Christine is sharing this because now that we go back out, like it helps you to maybe understand how to professionally align your energy better and to be more productive. So let's say, for me, I'm a connector voice. How can I better align my energy for better productivity? Is it just doing connectoring? Um, is that all I should concern myself with? Is just being the best connector, or is there something else?
That's such an excellent question. We do want to lean into our strengths to start off with, but a lot of our growth actually comes from being intentional about elevating some of our lower voices as well. So I talked about for me creative, elevating that guardian, pioneer, my fourth voice. I think I'm better at it than I actually am. But if I'm intentional, I can try to elevate that, especially to connect with pioneers. Like they want to win. Hey, I want to be about winning too. And then they'll respect me and they'll want to talk to me more, right? So that's something that I've learned to do. Um, and so for all our voices, right? There's going to be different mix for you as a connector, creative, pioneer as well. So the intentionality, I think, just being able to name the five different strengths in the room, also inside of you, and being able to calibrate that depending on the person you're interacting with, depending on the situation you're in, it is all within the realm of possibility. And
Mm.
I think that's what's exciting for me working with not only STEM professionals, but just anyone who wants to just have greater awareness and also others' awareness to bring better team alignment, people alignment. I mean, this applies even to families, right? It
Mm.
bleeds into your family life. It's not just about work because families are comprised of people too. So, getting along and maximizing your relationships in all spheres of life, I think Five Voices is a pretty dynamite framework.
So what's the difference between, let's say now, chasing success versus building it intentionally? Like it seems like knowing your voices can be helpful in building it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. So I think when you know your voice, you could kind of build your own success from the inside out instead of like chasing someone else's version of success. Like, I want to be like that guardian pioneer who is so good at X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to exert all this energy. That was my story. My first career out of college, I worked on Wall Street and I tried to put on that power suit and to be that pioneer that I admired, but like I found it really draining and I wasn't that good at it. I was kind of average, I would say at best. But I think being empowered with your self knowledge of what you're good at, you can build success around your strengths, kind of on your own terms. Doesn't mean you get free license to do whatever. It just means now I can lead with my strengths. I could work on some of my lower voices, and then some of it. I think the process of building your success, it starts with self awareness, but you kind of have to exercise some of these new leadership muscles, right? Like put on some new habits that maybe you didn't have before. So that's where the workout aspect of our cohort training even allows you to do. But you have to invite this process in, be like, well, what are my blind spots? So I am this voice order. So I am good at this. What am I missing? What am I not seeing? Right? How other people experience me, I'm not aware that I'm triggering certain people this way. I'm not aware that, this is a turnoff for some people, right? Because we all get irritated by people and their differences. But if we're kind of aware of the biggest ways that certain voice orders can rub each other the wrong way, and then once you're aware, you just make a different choice. You say, you know what? I'm going to lead myself a little differently in that situation.
So I had people share, like based on our conversation, what voice they thought they have. I saw a lot of connector, definitely creative and a nurture tendencies here.
Right?
So based upon what you even just shared, For example, let's say Lydia, who shared that she felt like nurture is her primary voice. What would be an example of that? Like, what would it look like for Lydia to maybe embrace the nurture voice more? And then maybe the nemesis voice that you said pioneer was like, what would it look like for her to even embrace that in a way? What would be some guidance that you can kind of people can see like the benefits of this in a way?
Absolutely. I think for nurturers, and I think, Lydia, if I remember correctly, were you nurture creative? Is that right? I think when you embrace the fact that you're caring for people is what people appreciate kind of the most about you, um, because it's such a valuable thing, right? There's a reason, like I said, why so much of the population, we need nurturers to make the world go round. So when you lead, it's okay for you to lead out of a place of care instead of trying to be this pioneer or this guardian or whatever, right? So you lead from a place of strength by caring for people. You may need to maybe calibrate how much, like if you're naturally a supportive person, sometimes it may take a little bit of risk taking, be like, you know what, there's this thing that I want to say to this person that I know is hard to hear, but I think it'll help this person or the situation be better. So you may have to intentionally, while caring for people, still be willing to say some hard things to people. So that may be an area of growth for nurturers. And the pioneering, that kind of sometimes can overlap with speaking hard truths to people that you care about, because you want to help them win. And on the one hand, you want to, right, be a good friend and you want to be there for them and care for them. But on the other hand, sometimes, right, when you really care, you do speak the truth to them, right, in love. So it could be driven by your care for people and saying hard things to people. But when you are able to calibrate that, then the impact that you bring to people around you will just kind of skyrocket because now you're being intentional.
Yeah, I think some of those ideas of saying like, well, we don't have to be a victim of something that maybe somebody is using in a negative way, or you may have, I would say like the opposite. Some of these voices can be like diametrically opposed to how you are naturally wired. Like sometimes if you're right-handed, they can feel left-handed, but it doesn't mean your left hand is bad. We just have to learn how to use it a little bit more deliberately in that way. And
Exactly.
so I was actually coaching a nurture earlier today and just had to share with him, like, just because you've seen pioneers exert their thoughts and opinions in a negative way, if you were to share and maybe it feels like bragging, but maybe push your thoughts and ideas based upon your competency and your pedigree, maybe what you intend for good will be received in that way and not necessarily, be taken for a negative trait that you tend to see it in a way. So we have to also be aware of our own biases in how we do things.
Absolutely. Yeah. You may think like pioneers are like this, so I'm never going to elevate my pioneer voice. The way that nurturers, when they elevate their pioneer voice, it's super powerful.
Yeah. And that's what we want everyone to do. Like even pioneers, when they elevate their pioneer voice, but through a little bit of more nurturing, it becomes more super powerful. It's almost like saying like, "Hey, I want to take care of you. I want best for what your goals are." And I know
Exactly.
this might not sound comfortable, but I'm really on the same side of you. So it's a little bit of sharing that intent in that way.
Exactly. And it is all in the realm of possibility. You can identify and elevate your lower voice,
Yeah.
pioneer, nurturer, nurturer, guardian. And it's super empowering when you do that and you start seeing people responding differently to you. And if you're a pioneer, you want to help people win anyway, right? So then by elevating your nurture voice, they're going to listen to you that much more. Now you've helped them win. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yash asked a great question. He asked, what do the bars mean under each voice?
Mm. So the bars are referring to the voice volume. So nurturers tend to be the quietest because sometimes they actually naturally tend to underestimate like the questions or the things they have to say. So they're kind of last to speak up in meetings, but we always emphasize in the five voice framework, we want you to speak up because you represent 43% of the population. Your opinion absolutely matters. If we don't hear from you, we are missing something. The creatives are the second quietest, guardian, connector, pioneer in that order. Pioneers are always heard. Connectors are often heard as well. The creative, we talked right earlier about how they're not heard because they're not communicating clearly. Guardians make their thoughts known. So that's what those bars refer to as your natural voice volume. So there can be some intentionality that you can inject in there too. Like as a pioneer, I know pioneer leaders who intentionally don't speak up first in meetings, and they will let the other voices go in the room so that you get a greater buy-in from the group. And then also you get to hear everyone's opinion. Because once a pioneer speaks up, nobody else wants to touch that. They're like, well, I'm not going to go against what he just said. It was very forthright. It was strong. So you can calibrate your volume too and be like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. I heard Jeff Bezos does that. He says, everybody else speak. He's a pioneer. So he's like, lets everyone else speak. And then he'll be like, and then he'll weigh in. And what he says, of course, carries a lot of weight. So I think it's pretty astute to do that.
So good. Um, was there anything else you wanted to share from your webinar, or I'm sorry, your seminar at the conference,
Yeah,
besides the five voices? I knew
sure.
there were a lot of other things that you had, so.
Yeah, we had five questions that we covered. So five voices is just one of the five questions. But there was another one that actually got really great feedback in terms of something that was really applicable. And that was the topic of energy management. So specifically, the topic of managing your energy to further your creative logic juices that are freely flowing at the first hour of the day when you wake up in the morning. So we'll move on. That topic is really fun for me because I've been utilizing this a lot. So the creative first hour basically is about when you first wake up, your prefrontal cortex is asleep. And so mostly asleep. And your prefrontal cortex is kind of like your boss. It's your command center, large and in charge, executive function, linear logic, but it's kind of impaired in the morning. So you wake up and you have like a groggy brain and you're like, oh, I hate that. I have to caffeinate it. I have to wake up and get rid of this groggy brain. Well, what's really interesting is that the groggy brain is absolutely helpful towards a different type of logic. This is your creative logic. And so when the boss is out, creative logic is very different. Like linear logic is A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, right? And so that's the flow of linear logic. And we need that type of logic for a lot of things in life, including our STEM engineering work. But when the boss is out, then you can actually think more divergently. So we could think expanding the world of possibilities. Like, how do you find new solutions to existing problems? It's actually best done when your prefrontal cortex is not functioning at its best. So then you could think of a lot of writing synthesis is great the first hour of the day. If you want to think about strategy, like how do I think about approaching this problem in a new way and strategize on best possibilities, best done at the first hour when you're groggy. And then after about an hour, your brain wakes up, your prefrontal cortex wakes up. Then you can do convergent thinking. Think about maybe one of the possibilities that you thought of, and you can hone in and you can execute. But I just love that in the morning, you can think more outside the box, right? And what's beautiful about that too, I think, is you can kind of give yourself that psychological safety in the morning to kind of play around with different solutions, right? What if we approached it this way, approached it that way? And when you do that, you can't like explore all day long because oftentimes during work you have to be on. You can't make mistakes, right? But if you give yourself that psychological safety and space and time to play, then you will be that much more impactful and really exploring the world of possibility instead of just being all about execution, right? And so the groggy brain is your friend. And so that really resonated with a lot of people. I'm a musician too, so I write songs. Like in 1 hour, I was able to write music and lyrics like in 1 hour. And I can never do that. I hate songwriting because I get bogged down by the details. But first hour of the day, it's amazing. And also for strategy work, I mentioned Jeff Bezos, right? He does this. He does 1 hour first thing in the morning. He drinks coffee. He reads the news, and he says that no phones. And he says that just investing that 1 hour to kind of putz around, drink coffee, whatever. He says that and read the news. He says that it helps him to make better strategic decisions. And Jensen Huang does it. He calls it victory before 9 a.m. Mm-hmm. So he's going to decide on a strategy topic the night before. And then as soon as he wakes up, while he still has groggy brain, he will engage in kind of play around with that strategy topic and exploring different possibilities before 9 a.m. Elon Musk does it, same hour, same chair, same pen. And so people are investing and seeing a lot of fruit. And all it takes is it's not a waste when you feel groggy. When your brain is groggy, it's your friend, right? You can leverage that.
Well, and it's one interesting thing is like I've started doing that. Like the first hour in the morning is just for me. I don't let my wife, my daughter get in the way.
Yeah.
Maybe I get myself in the way, but I wake up, I take time to just think while I lie in the bed.
Yep. Yep.
And then I'll go to the gym and it's for me. It's me time. And I feel like while I'm working out, sometimes the best ideas will sometimes to come in.
Exactly.
Um, I was a fool not to write it down because I thought I'll remember it myself.
Right.
Never do.
Keep your
So
phone handy. Take
I
notes.
do. Now I have my phone with me when I work out. I'll put stuff in. But what's interesting is like I do believe not as much as another way to look at this is sometimes in the morning I am a lot more dimorphic in thought and able to kind of think about what possibilities could be.
Yep.
And then from having more of an abundance a possible mindset of resources and then filtering out, okay, what does reality look like and shaping those in that way. And it definitely has helped me to be a lot more strategic by nature. But one of the other questions that you've asked, and I'll throw this in the chat box for the audiences, is talking about like what high value learning opportunities can I intentionally pursue beyond my current role to broaden my perspective, bringing new insights and skills back to the team? And so I wonder if like the first step is like practice these things in your current job. Then you could start moving into and scaling yourself towards these high value learning opportunities because now your brain is ready for it versus if you're constantly doing things a certain way, it's really hard to shift gears into this new way. But I'll let you kind of elaborate a little bit more on what your thoughts are.
Sure. Let's see here. I'm going to try to look at the situation, the actual question that was posed. Yeah, so I think in terms of broadening our perspective, that actually touches on another topic that we covered in the workshop at the conference about building range. So you could talk about you want to focus and of course do an excellent job in whatever your current role requires, but you can kind of think about opportunities that are kind of adjacent to your current role as a way of building breadth as well as depth of expertise. You could kind of build breadth and range in terms of being able to work with cross-functional teams, maybe, or try, taking on learning a new skill that isn't directly related to your expertise, but maybe just adjacent. And that way you can intentionally develop, like if creative logic is not your thing and you're more of a guardian, try experimenting with it, like try it out and see what it does for you. Because I think the name of the game is develop competencies always. And it's really nice if you're able to develop beyond your current role or current perspective by investing in these kind of lateral ways before those new skills are required, right? So you can invest, like leadership communication training might be one of them. Like you're okay where you are, but you're like, I want to be better. So no one's putting a gun to your head, but you're like, I want to invest in this, right? So there's lots of ways that you could approach it. Um, can I give one more thought about the creative logic before we move on? Because I love
Yeah.
the fun part. Yeah. And we'll definitely get to the questions after this. Um, but when it comes to, well, this slide is just talking about asking those hard questions in the morning. If you shy away from hard questions, it could limit your leadership. So ask away in the morning. But what I wanted to mention is the power of creative simmer. So this is you engage in that morning session and you ask these big strategy questions and you work on it. Doesn't mean you have to solve that problem in an hour. You could work on it for an hour, write it. If you're a writer, there's no writer's block in the morning. It's amazing, but work on it for an hour and then you just walk away. What happens is that then it turns on the creative simmer. This is based on like some neuroscience writing by David Kadavi. So it kind of turns on your creative simmer where these ideas are kind of cooking, right? Slow cooking in your back burner. And then at your next creative session, or it might be like over the weekend, you're taking a walk or you're exercising, right, Jim? Or you're like, going grocery shopping, you're taking a shower, and then all of a sudden a light bulb comes on. Um, and it helps you find the solution that you were trying for, but you couldn't solve within that first hour. Well, the power of passive genius is that your brain is working on solving that puzzle, answering that impossible question, even when you're not. It's working when you're not. So, this is why it's a passive genius. But if you let the idea simmer, the important thing is, do you have a time of day where you are asking these hard questions and thinking divergently about finding new solutions to existing problems? Play with it, engage, and then walk away. Even if you don't solve the problem in 1 hour, that time is not wasted. And it'll often yield really powerful solutions as you re-engage and have multiple these creative sessions. It could be really, really powerful. And I've experienced it for myself. I love no writer's block in the morning, like all my workshop prep I did first thing in the morning. It's
Mhm.
amazing how much you get done in terms of writing. So I was telling people that you can gather your evidence in the afternoon, but save the actual writing synthesis for morning. And it's like you get 10 times as much done. It's really amazing. So just wanted to share that tip before we move on from this topic.
Oh yeah, I think that's really important because sometimes we could accidentally even just um, not take advantage of those times, right? And like react to situations versus maybe take the time to invest an hour to be strategic for the rest of the day. Let's
Yeah,
say, I love to believe everyone only works 8 hours a day, but realistically, if we're doing 10 plus, right, like, could we invest 10% of that so we can gain a better 90% more effective in that way?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Nowadays, I get so excited about my morning creative genius hour that it's so weird. Like I have college friends who are like, "You get up at 5? Like that's unbelievable." Because I was always like getting up late to class. Like I was chronically late to everything.
Mhm.
I was But I think what's happened over the years is because I love this so much, I keep getting up earlier and earlier because then I'm like, oh my gosh, I could really capitalize on this.
Yeah.
So it's a fun way, it's something fun to try out. And if you like it, you can do it more than once. And as a way of investing in just your building your breath, building your range, and being strategic, there is a time of day when it's best to be strategic.
And it is, again, a learned thing, right? None of us can do this naturally. If that was the case, we wouldn't need to be on this webinar.
Right.
But it's one of those things that we need to learn.
Yeah.
And so, with that, like Christine, this is just merely an introduction of what can be possible for us, and what would it look like for us to thrive as a leader, not just sometimes we're surviving, right? We're just trying to get through the day and trying to find maybe tips and tricks to get through. But what you're sharing with us aren't necessarily tips and tricks. They're actually leadership principles, right? They're actually tools that successful leaders use day in and day out. And they learn how to leverage their voice, maybe, or their strengths, engage more deliberately, understand what makes them tick and why certain people may have struggle in terms of getting along, but not learning to take it so personally, or why do you tend to see certain things and other people just miss it, right? And just having those things. And so, with that, you're offering a cohort, and just for a lot of the participants here at SACE, we've moved away from just doing webinars because it felt like we're just telling you something, but we're not walking with you, right? We're almost like telling you, but not doing it with you. And so, one of the things that I've challenged every one of our trainers to do is walk with our participants and help them to be inspired by the things that we shared and visualize maybe what their life could be if they were to incorporate these, but also realize it takes time, it takes training. And and some of these skills that you're offering are in this cohort that you want to do. So I wanted to give you some time to like, what would it look like to walk with you in this through a cohort? And maybe you go share some of those things for us. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So a lot of these tools that are Five Voices has amazing tools. The power is in the application. So otherwise it's like, oh, interesting brain candy. Like that was really interesting for me to think about. But then if you don't apply it, there's not really going to be any change. You're not really going to have much fruit in your life. So the power is in the application. The cohort is designed kind of like as a workout regimen. Like Jim, you go to the gym regularly, right? Many others of you may do so as well. So it's really about being part of a group where we're all headed in the same direction, and we want to kind of spur you on to make sure that you're actually practicing these things. So the tools are great, but honestly, the power is in the application. So when you work out, you want to build new muscles, you got to work those out and not just think about it, right? I used to teach, I still teach like a lot of piano clients to go from like they don't know anything and now they're phenomenal pianists. That happened not because you were thinking about it, but because you actually practiced, right? Same thing with the gym. So we are want to come alongside you. There's going to be great insights, but the power is in actually doing workouts together. And when you do, your life will start to change. 1 degree of difference is going to yield a lot of fruit over time. And if you can get insights that are even bigger than 1%, right? The more you glean, the more you do. And I've seen people come away from this. It's a short training, 4 months, but it's super powerful. I've had clients walk away and get promoted as engineers and in other finance roles as well. So it's really fun, I think, sometimes to kind of tap into your strengths, to understand your blind spots, right? And that knowledge can be empowering, but then to also join a cohort where everyone is practicing it. And you could also, beauty of cohort learning is you also kind of can hear from like voices that are different from yours and see how they're processing, which will also give you that insight into how you can work with these different voices at your company, on your team. You're like, oh my gosh, is that what a connector is thinking? Like, oh, that's what a guardian is thinking? Like you just had no idea. But that's the beauty of cohort training. And it's really fun. I love taking a front row seat and seeing people transform. If I could say one more thing, it was so interesting at the conference. We were talking about how to both inspire and equip our engineers to lead. And of course, you don't have to be an engineer only in all walks of life. If you see yourself like as not being a great, effective leader, I just want to encourage you, like, it's possible. And but depending on like probably your voice order, there may be different inhibitions at play. So like, let's say you're like, oh, I don't know if I have what it takes, I don't even know if I know how to lead. Like I'm in this line of business because I don't want to work with people, right? But you're like, there's a lot of self-doubt there. But if you understand your strengths and you understand that you bring value from what you value, then you can lead. And then you could also be mindful of managing other people very intentionally. If you're a guardian, lead with that guardian strength, right? Do that. And then also elevate your other voices to connect with others in the room. Or maybe, maybe you're like a pioneer voice. You're not stepping up because you love to win. And you don't want to step up and lead if you're not going to win, right? If you're not going to be successful. Well, this training will also give you a vision for leadership that's compelling because it's built from who you are. Also, the tools and insights can equip you to lead people successfully. So you're not going it alone, right? You're not doing it blind. And also, we're here to help you win, right? Or I could think of another example. If you're not stepping up to leadership because you're like an ideas person and you don't even like to work with people, you're not sure if that's your thing. Well, consider this leadership training an opportunity to take your ideas and bring them to life, right? By impacting not just your own product or your team's contribution, but it could impact your whole company and their own success because you could multiply your vision by not going it alone, right? You can get others to implement your vision. You could help tap into others to maybe, see the blind spots in your vision, make your vision better, right? That's what you want, right? If you're an ideas person. So you can enlarge your corner of where you lead. You can step up and lead and just, you'll be doing everyone a favor by stepping up to lead. And that's my hope for each of you. And beyond this room as well, if you have questions about like, I don't know if I have what it takes, you do. You just have to tap into it, know your strengths, know your blind spots. We'll give you plenty of support, plenty of challenge to kind of help you be the kind of leader that people want to follow. which is someone who is really self-aware and others aware. And so that's kind of the power of the training. Um, and I'll share one more slide here. I love this visual as well, is the more you know yourself, the more you could lead yourself, right? So you know your tendencies, your voice orders, um, and then you see your patterns of behavior and the actions, the consequences, and the reality. This is that infinity loop. You can never graduate from the school of self-awareness. There's always more that you can learn about yourself, and there's always ways that you can grow and be intentional. Well, once you are effectively leading yourself, people naturally will want to follow you. This just kind of happens. And also, if you're able to tap into how to lead people with different voices, right? It just takes your leadership to a whole nother level, because now you've taken your self-awareness and multiplied it with others' awareness. So it's really, I would say, really fun, really liberating. Um, so yeah, definitely feel free. This is the QR code to the cohort that Jim mentioned. So you can feel free to check it out and be in touch with me if you have any questions. It's a every other week cohort, kind of give you time to process what you're learning and put it into practice. And I'm also part of a Tuesday course. There's a Friday cohort and a Tuesday cohort, but we'd love to have you join either one. So definitely feel free to check it out. And let me know if you have any questions. I think we have a few minutes.
Okay, we put them in the chat box for you. And some other things I wanted to share with, again, that we're doing at SACE is to really help you to communicate in some of these things. So, some of you that went to the conference, you might have seen me demonstrate this, but we created a ChatGPT training advisor, and in it has over 150 pages of leadership development dynamics, training acumens, a lot of things that we developed to make sure that you can communicate this in a way that your company could recognize. So, I put in a sample here of what I would write and say like, hey, I'm an advanced individual contributor, meaning like, hey, you've been, individual contributor for a while, but you're not a people manager. So you might not have people reporting to you, but you're almost like a manager, but you want to become an effective people leader. Maybe you want to become a people leader. And so I'm uploading my 360 eval. Maybe, if you took strength finders, if you did the 5 voices, you could throw that in here, but as much data for it to get to know you, and then ask, like, how can I leverage Christine Lee's Maximizing Your Next Level career cohort to help me better prepare to lead people? And how will it benefit my team, not just my career? Because you want to ask maybe your manager to have permission to either take it and you pay it out of your own pocket, or what if the company could see the value in it and pay for it out of pocket? And the way we came up with this is because I grew up and I was in your shoes in my early career, and I felt like I get these 360 evals, I get these sample leadership skill diagnostics, as well as performance reviews. And it's almost like saying, well, guess what, Yash? You figure out how you can become better. And, sometimes you feel empowered, or sometimes you feel like, okay, yeah, I'm going to take some classes, but you're not a leadership development expert. And you're fortunate enough to be on this call because that's what I do, right? And Christine is a leadership development coach, and she helps us develop these things. And so what we did was we put all this in ChatGPT. We created our own little bot, and in it, it's going to tell you how to communicate this to your manager. First, it's going to identify this is your career stage. And if this is your career stage, then here are some 3 key things that it's telling you from your leadership development that it saw as gaps that you need to work on. And it tells you why those things are important for your career and your type of a role. And number 2, we're saying, okay, if you want to take this cohort that Christine has, well, these are the core competencies. And you'll see these little codes. These are our own SACE codes, but it's leading yourself 1.5. We call that self-awareness. Leading yourself 2.1, it's authenticity. And these are like the competencies that are pretty much universally recognized from all large companies, that they say, hey, these are leadership dynamics of leading yourself, leading a team, and leading the company, like taking ownership of your role. Well, we also explain why this is important and how this works. And so we're helping you to understand what are they saying and how this is applied to you and what are you not seeing in yourself, right? Know yourself to lead yourself, as Christine said. Well, we also want to tell you, like, why is this good for your team? Like, what is the team going to benefit from it? And how it tells you how you're going to be probably a lot more of a force multiplier in that way, and helping you to help others, people to want to follow you and get more clarity and focus. Again, these are based upon what you uploaded. But here's the conversation you probably want to have with your managers like, hey, this is what you told me to do. This is what you're asking me to be in charge of. Well, guess what? I found something, and this is why I should take it. And talk about like these are the strengths and weaknesses. And what's really cool about this is I want you to have a conversation with ChatGPT. And if you haven't done that, well, you're missing out on some of my Saturday morning 1 hour conversations are with ChatGPT. And I'll be like, okay, that sounds really great and dandy, but like, do you have a one-page email that I get sent to my manager about this cohort and the benefits of it and help cost justify the time I'm going to spend? And also ask my manager to maybe sponsor me for that. Right? I just talked to it, and it's gonna transcribe it, and I'll upload it. And guess what it'll do? It'll write you a sample letter for you to email to your manager and help you to get advocate for yourself. Again, the goal is we want to make this easy for you to take ownership of your career. We know it's not easy to do, but if we can help you, then we can help self-advocate for you, right? And this is what that email would look like that you do. I put a link to this chat GPT tool, our SACE trainer tool, in the chat box as well for you to play with. What's going to be important is your company may not let you use this on your company network. But I think that's very important for you to understand. Like, this is for you, it's your career. It's not the company's job, it's you advocating for your own development. Your company just happens to be the space that you're in, that you get to work on your skills within. Does that make sense? So, what we're trying to say is, Christine, like, sure, the company benefits from this, but you are the greatest beneficiary because then if you choose to leave that company and go somewhere else, guess what? You take it with you and you get to benefit in that way. And so, as much as we like to put this in all internally within your company, the reality is we want you to take ownership. So, take your 360 evals, take your learnings, have conversations with it, really refine this and allow it to serve you. And just to let you know, I don't get any of this data. When you input something, I don't see it. So it's all private. It's in within that session, and it's just for yourself and what you have. So thank you, Christine, for sharing and giving us such an amazing resource and doing the cohort. I know it wasn't easy to commit all this time out of your schedule to want to walk with people and help them guide through this. But we can see that the sampling of the 5 voices and some of the questions that you've answered, how impactful this could be for where we're going to be more intentional versus feeling like we're constantly surviving. But before we close off, I did want to invite the participants. If you have any last questions, feel free to stick around. But Christine, anything you want to share before we finish our session today?
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. It's nice to see some of you post-conference, some of you from other corners of the world, other connections. And definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I would love to help answer any queries that you have. And I guess last thing I will say is this is really fun. Like I found it super liberating and fun to kind of help each person be the maximum that they can be. It's a really value add for your life, for your work team, for your family. I think the implications go really far. And so, yeah, as you learn about your strengths and you learn about your blind spots, if you can up level your leadership, leadership is basically another word for influence, right? We want you to be leaders are worth following. That's our big mantra in the giant worldwide framework. And that really means, you knowing yourself and leading other people. It is all in the realm of possibility. And so, yeah, we're here to partner with you in that journey. So I hope you guys join us.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in. Stick around if you have any other further questions, but we hope to see you again.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.